Well, good afternoon, folks. This is Resonate. My name's Phil Stokes, and I'm just asking a few friends what's resonating with them as I do my daily walk around the local park today. Andy is a good friend of mine, and actually I've also realized that three of my really closest friends are doctors who are now doing something different, which I don't know what that says about me, but and two of them are called Andy. So the last person I interviewed was a Dr. Andrew. And yeah, anyway, I don't know what that's about, but there we go. So Andy, Andy is a singer-songwriter, a doctor, and an author as well, and gets great conversations going. And I've always admired everything that Andy does. And so Andy, what's getting you going? What's resonating for you in this moment?
I think what you said is true, Paul, that we are in a unique moment. I think probably all of us in our lives have experienced moments of trauma, of real suffering and pain, and moments when we have known that we, maybe not all of us have experienced a time when we've realized that we are not in control and that we can't control everything. And I've experienced that, I guess, the day my son was born, Jesse, now 6 years ago. He had a stroke the day he was born, and it was, as you can imagine, an incredibly traumatic thing. Phil, the man I'm speaking to right now, was sitting in the cafe of St. Thomas Hospital in amazing support of Jen and myself on that very evening. But there are moments like that come along in most of our lives where we're just realizing we are not in control of the narrative here, and we are suffering a trauma. I had a similar experience just a few weeks ago when my daughter Jubilee was walking directly behind me, and my leg caught a bramble and it flicked back, and when the thorn went straight into her eye, actually lacerating her cornea and puncturing her lens. And so she's already had to have eye surgery, and in a week or two she's going to have some more to remove that lens and put an artificial one in. And so I've been fairly traumatized in this last little while as well. So it strikes me we all have these times in our lives where trauma comes along, and stuff that reminds us that we cannot control everything come along. And different people have different ways of framing those times, but we all have those moments. But it's very, very rare that we all experience a moment like that all at the same time. I think that's the unique and strange thing about this time for many of us. That I'm sure that's not the case for those who lived through World War II, who are still with us. And there are other folks, when you think about it, it's very much a kind of a comfortable Western way to look at the world, but that is where I'm coming from. So, you look at folks who've been through war recently in sub-Saharan Africa. You look at some of the parts of the world that are just covered in strife, where you've got whole communities that are traumatized. This is not alien for a lot of people, but I think for a lot of us in the West, this is new for everybody to be going through this squeezing, this trauma at the same time. And I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of philosophizing and thinking about this and asking, the question of, well, what will things look like? What will we learn when we all come out the other side of this? But for me, I think it's important. It's really important, both as a human being, but just for our own mental health, to actually stop and go like, this is terrible. This is really awful. There's so many of us. There's a young guy, only 30-something, late 30-something guy called Martin from our church family who's died through the COVID thing, and the pain of that's awful. And other people knew him a lot better than I did, but I know their pain, I know their distress, and I know my fears for my loved ones in the midst of it, and many other stories of other people connected. That this is an awful disease. This is an awful disease preying on the weakest of us. And And I think, as those who talk about grieving, going through the fullness of the grieving process, and not rushing on to the later stages of the process, that people who tend to do worst are those who rush through the stages of grief. And gosh, you as a pastor, Phil, will have walked many people through this, but there can be a rush at times like this, especially with our sort of hyper realized, hyper fast internet age, social media. One thing's the story one day, so the next day we want something else to be the story. We're not actually wired anymore to just sit in something and lament it. We're sort of hardwired to try and find the silver lining. And I admire, and I'm one of those people. I'm a hardwired optimist. I'm one of those people who's always trying to find the silver lining to things, and hopefully that's useful in many contexts and in many communities to try and inspire people through. And we do have to lift our eyes up. And we do have to lift our eyes up to see that this is not the whole story. But it's also really important to be real and recognize what is going on around us presently, and to stop and go, this is horrendous, and to ask some serious questions. Those of us who have a religious faith, for me, it means asking some pretty serious questions of God and saying, well, talk me through this. Because, I know, my dad was a biology teacher. I understand that, our world is innately fragile. I understand that, the bacteria and viruses that also cause disease also do really helpful things in the life cycles of plants and in the natural world. I get that our world is innately fragile, yet beautiful. But you're left thinking at times like this, does it have to be this fragile? Does it have to be this fragile? Because this seems to be just like, a few percentage points on the spectrum beyond what feels anyway close to being rational. And so, and that's, in that there is a tendency for us to play God, which is not good. But we've got to ask the question. We've got to be honest and say, like, well, could you not stop this? Could we, could this not, there's so much about it that is so ugly. There's so much that is so painful. Like the people, those with resource will perhaps manage to get through this, and with health may manage to get through this, but those with less resource, both in terms of economics and health, will struggle the most. And you think this is just
such an important point, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is a great leveler," and it's not. No. People who have being cosseted and they've got resources, and those that haven't have actually been thrown into nothing. So it's not a leveler. Again, the privileged are protected by a lot of what's. I mean, obviously, a plague is a plague, and it touches into many. But the ability to socially isolate is, again, the capacity to socially isolate and survive is a largely a privileged position to be in.
And the ability to, be working from home. That's the privilege of people who are often doing sort of arm's length jobs, whereas those who are doing jobs in people's faces where bodily contact and bodily movement is necessary, often those who are least paid, those are the folks who are still on the front line, allowing the luxuries of folks who are getting stuff delivered to their door. So it's a crazy time. And I think I've been really thinking about how you lament at this time. Like, so you don't stop making your political statements, you don't put everything on hold. World, you're still protesting to the world, but I feel like the lament thing is often a protesting thing to God. And I've been really struck recently, David, who wrote many of the Psalms in the Bible, was described as a man after God's own heart. But what we miss in that phrase sometimes is the fact that he was going after God. He was quite literally going after him, asking some pretty challenging questions, and not just saying how long, God.
70%, didn't he? 70% of the Psalms are laments, in actual fact. A lot of people sort of say, well, why have we got more lament going on when they're week by week in church? It's a strange thing. I mean, we do like to look on the sunny side of everything, and but the content, if you look at it in the Bible, is incredible in terms of the amount of lament.
I think you're right, and I think because we're not in the pattern of lamenting, it means that our muscles are not very well developed when we come to a time like this, when we probably really need to be lamenting. and almost there's a politeness in us that just doesn't feel like we're allowed to say something like that to God, that doesn't follow in the pattern of how David interacted with God, how he did go after God. And so we therefore fight shy of really saying what we think and really addressing what we think. I've my prayers for Jubilee's eye to be healed have been, I've at times it's just been on my knees crying out, but at times it's been like, God, seriously, why not? I cannot see a reason why this would not be a good plan and this would not bring you glory. And perhaps that's the bargaining phase of grief that's going on, right there and then. But I think it's important for me to do it, and God's big enough to hear it. And I don't think there are very few times where God is responding to David and saying, "Oh gosh, you've really offended me with the language that you used there."
I like that phrase that you used earlier on. You said, "Talk me through this, God. Chat me through with this process." And I think that most people think that if they've got a complaint, God is the last place they can go to, and that is just terrible mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we go and say why, how and what on earth is this achieving in the long run? Again, I'm not sure we can easily get to the place of answers in any shortcut route. Plagues have always happened, and they probably will continue. But as you say, I think we've become inured to that fact in our Western positives of the situation.
And even, you mentioned the word answers there, but even going looking for answers is a slightly interesting framing, in that I'm not so sure that it's as much about finding the answers, because I don't know that there necessarily are answers to many of these things. I think it's more about the questions. Yeah. It's more about the relationship. It's the fact that you're asking the questions. I wrote a song just a couple of days ago about Jesus' experience in the Garden of Gethsemane, and this sort of the silence he experienced there. Going, can we do this another way? Can we talk? That's kind of his version of like, talk me through this, because this. Can we do this another way? And and he hears nothing. And that silence, I guess we've just had that famous, sort of Holy Saturday between Good Friday and Easter Sunday, a day of, where we think about the silence. And, the line that I ended up writing at the end of the bridge of the song was, I tried to capture the paradox by saying we see a rising tide, but we see a clear horizon. We see a virus wild, but we see the saints arising. We see the fear of death, but we will not bow before it. And this world cries out for breath, and we pray you won't ignore it. And the chorus goes, help us, Lord, for everything has changed. Help us, Lord, for you are still the same. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord, for death is at the door. It's up there on my YouTube channel. It's called Sam COVID-19. And I guess in terms of what we're talking about, the lamenting, the line that has caused some people to sort of sit up and go, oh gosh, can you say that? Is in the bridge of the song, where what came to me was, why do you sleep in peace when just one word could make this cease? And that's the picture of the complaint of the disciples in the boat when the storm was raging and Jesus was asleep, and they didn't know what was going to come to pass, but that didn't make that moment any more real or any less scary for those folks. And I guess those were the words that were coming to me. Why do you sleep in peace when just one word could make this cease? I do believe in an omnipotent God, and I don't understand why he chooses to move or not move in different circumstances. Maybe not mine to know, but I'm going to ask the question.
It's the challenge is that relationship again, isn't it? It's exactly what you said. How do we stay in relationship and not think that everything is that God isn't some kind of machine, slot machine. The world is far more complex than that. Well, Andy, thank you so much for spending time with me.
Not at all. What a wonderful way to spend some time in the midst of all this.
Well, it's just adding richness to my little walks around the park, just to hear from my friends and what they're thinking. And it's really challenging. You said some very deeply challenging things as usual. And we'll leave that for our listeners to get back to. And just to say to people, please do, if you've got questions for Andy, for me, message us. The contact is down below. And also add your comments and subscribe, do like the channel, see if we can build some kind of a conversation that helps a few people along the way. God bless you, Andy. Thanks so much.
Bless you, Phil. Lovely to see you.